Hello, everyone. Welcome to this. First of all, I want to apologize for not, telling you this because I didn't even know I was going to do a series on it. Because I like to call it my movie memories, where I talk about a movie, whether it's made for television or theatrical or direct to DVD or whatever, or direct to video, basically. And I talk about my memories about it. Now, I started off surprisingly with David Copperfield from 1993. So I figured, why not follow that up with another made-for-television animated film? And this one, of course, was made way before David Copperfield was. The 93 David Copperfield film. This one was actually made, ladies and gentlemen, in 1980. That's right. When I was 1 year old, this was made. And this too, ladies and gentlemen, was released around the time of Christmas. I think it was released maybe a week or so, or 2 or 3. I can't remember. I have to look it up on Wikipedia. But it's basically around Christmas time. This movie was released in syndication by Hanna-Barbera, by Primetime Television. And the movie I'm talking about, of course, is Yogi's First Christmas. Now, if you don't know about this movie, I can say this. You do have an opportunity to watch it. Because if you go to a torrent, if you look online, you torrent for this movie, or you look for a torrent on this movie, you're going to find a torrent that contains all the Christmas specials, my friend. Every single Christmas special that Hanna-Barbera has done at that time, from the Smurfs to Flintstones to Yogi Bear, they will have it in that torrent package that you can find. But this film was released, like I said, on television in syndication by Hanna-Barbera in association with the Operation Primetime Television. I think that's what it was called, Operation Primetime. And this was basically a 2-hour animated Christmas film. That's what it was. Now, usually you may say to yourself, well, aren't Christmas films saved for theaters or direct to video or something like that? Or made for television Christmas movies? Aren't they supposed to be live action? Yeah, originally, yes, that's majority of the time that's true. But the thing is, there will be occasions where animated Christmas movies or holiday movies will be released directly to television before going to video. And Yogi's First Christmas, like I said, came out in 1980, in December of 1980. And I was only, like I said, about a year and a half old at the time. And I could say this, I don't remember it very well, because like I said, I was only a year and a half, but I do remember watching it as the years went on throughout, as much as I could, or when I could, throughout the 80s and then throughout the 90s. And one of the things I do like about this film, and I remember the best about it, is it was one of those, famous all-star flicks. It was one of those famous all-star flicks that Hanna-Barbera was doing throughout the 70s and the 80s. In fact, I mentioned this on my Yogi Bear deal. You can look it up. But basically, this was again, like I said, this was just a all-star movie thing, and it starred basically the primary characters associated with Yogi in a way, sort of like Yogi's gang, sort of like what Mickey Mouse is like. When you look at a show like House of Mouse or something like that, you always see Mickey along with Minnie and Goofy and Donald and Daisy and Max. That's sort of what Yogi was. Yogi always had his groupies, his gang. He had his primary gang was always Huckleberry, Snagglepuss, Oggy Doggy, Daddy Doggy, and Cindy, along with Ranger Smith. But basically, this show came out in 1980. And this movie came out in 1980, and again, like I said, throughout the 80s and the 90s, I watched it as much as I could, or when I could. And I think it wasn't until maybe the late 80s, maybe the mid to late 80s, that it started to show up on cable television like TBS and then TNT. Um, I mean, it still stayed in syndication. I think most of the time when you would see it in syndication would be like on a Saturday, on a late Saturday, on an early or late Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And there were, I think, occasions, I'm not really sure, that you would see it during the basically the early to mid, like the late morning, early, like I said, the late morning, early afternoon, if you will. They would show it in syndication at times, and of course they kept it, and of course they kept the tradition of keeping it in prime time as well. But again, like I said, it wasn't until I think about the late 80s or something like that, mid to late 80s, that it started to show up on cable television on networks like TBS and TNT, and I think even Cartoon Network, not Cartoon Network, but the USA Network, and I think even Disney Channel had it at one time or so, and maybe a few others, and I think maybe Nickelodeon, I'm not really sure. But it was around, like I said, the mid to late 80s when it started to show more like the mid to late 80s, or the late mid to late 80s, I should say, that it started showing up in, like I said, on cable television, on channels like I said, TBS, TNT, USA, Disney Channel, Nickelodeon. And this was before they brought out Cartoon Network and Boomerang. So it would appear on those channels at times, depending on which channel had it what year. And then of course throughout the 90s it was primarily shown on TBS, TNT, and then when Cartoon Network was created in the early 90s, it was broadcast on there. And then of course when Boomerang came around in the 90s as well, it was broadcast on there as well, but they still kept it broadcast on Cartoon Network, which was pretty cool. And I remember throughout the 90s, at Christmas time, I would try to watch it. And, here's the thing. I lived with my father, and my father was okay with me watching it maybe just once, maybe let me watch it twice, but that was about it. Because, my father, in a way, was kind of like the guy who was like, okay, you've seen it once, that's enough. That's enough, okay? We don't have to see it again. But if he felt like, there was nothing really else on for us to watch or for me to watch, I'd watch it again. And it wasn't until about the first year I was out on my own that I was able to finally record it to VHS. Basically what happened is that I moved out of Oskaloosa, Kansas, where I was living for 6 years or so, almost 6 years. And I moved to Lawrence, Kansas. And in that first year, I was able to record Yogi's First Christmas off of Cartoon Network because it was still being showcased there. And it would be showcased on Cartoon Network up until I think about 2007, 2008, I believe. Maybe 2000. I think until about between 2007 and 2009 was when it was last shown. Between those years, because it wasn't shown last year in 2010 on the network unless I missed it. But unless I missed it, and if I did, then it does. Then I'm wrong, and Cartoon Network does still broadcast it. But I didn't. From what I saw, I didn't see no advertisement for it online or anywhere else. So, but again, if I'm wrong, somebody can let me know. But again, for most of the time, even throughout the 2000s, Cartoon Network showcased it about once or twice every year during Christmas. But most of the time now it would be shown on Boomerang, maybe more than once or twice. So, but the movie to me was pretty good. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about it. In fact, it's one of my favorite movies growing up from my childhood. It's one of my favorite holiday movies. As a matter of fact, I think I've got about 1, 2, maybe 4 or 5, perhaps, and this sounds ridiculous, but 4 or 5 DVDs, maybe 6 DVDs. Well, let's just put it this way. Maybe about half of my holiday DVDs that I have, that I started back in about 04, I believe, 03, actually 2003 up till now, have Yogi's First Christmas on there. One of them from '03 till now has Yogi's First Christmas on there. There's no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, recently, because I was able to download it as part of a torrent package along with the other Hanna-Barbera Christmas specials, we have this thing on our computer in the rec room called the Windows DVD Maker. So I was actually able to make a DVD copy of the movie. That's right, I was able to make a DVD copy of the movie, and I think about 6 years before, if I remember right, it's been about 6 years ago, in 2005, I created this Yogi Bear DVD set, and my plan was to put all 3 Yogi Bear movies that had Yogi, that featured Yogi, Boo Boo, Cindy, and Ranger Smith, put them all together in one package, and then add the first episode, the pilot episode, the origin story episode, if you will, of Yo Yogi, and maybe a few fan vids that I did. But unfortunately, that never came to be. All I could do was get the 3 movies on there because there was some damage or a scratch or so on the disc that probably would have killed it. So, but anyway, that's how much I like the movie. And I know you might say to yourself, well, Brian, that sounds like a little over-obsessive or something, right? Well, it's not over-obsessive with a movie. Basically, to me, when I add Yogi's First Christmas on all these holiday DVDs, including my Yogi Bear DVD, this is all, as well as do a DVD, as well as you use DVD Maker to make a copy of it on DVD. The reason I do this, folks, is because there's always a chance that a DVD may not work or you may lose that DVD. So, but to me, again, getting back to Yogi's First Christmas, I thought it was a great Christmas film, great 2-hour Christmas film or special, depending on how you want to look at it. I thought the story was very well done. Basically, the story is the Jellystone Lodge, which I think this is the first time we ever see it, is in jeopardy of being shut down and sold by its owner, Miss Throckmorton, I believe. I think that's her name. And she's doing it for business reasons. Because, well, one of the business reasons we find out is because there's a group of contractors or something that want to build a freeway through the lodge. Basically where the lodge is, they want to build a freeway. So Throckmorton, she decides, because she decides that because over the past few years she's been getting reports that there's been sabotage during the Winter Carnival, which takes place during the Christmas Winter Carnival that takes place during the Christmas time, that perhaps it's best to sell the lodge. So what happens is Ranger Smith and the manager and the hotel manager at the time, I think his name is Mr. Dingwell. That's what his name is. His name's Dingwell. They tell Yogi's friends, who we see, Huckleberry, Snagglepuss, and Augie Doggy and Daddy Doggy, that what they need to do is impress Miss Throckmorton enough that she will decide not to sell the lodge. She won't sell it. So they do the best they can, despite the fact that they're getting sabotaged still, or attempted to be sabotaged by the antagonist in the film called Herman the Hermit. Now, basically what his role is he's a hermit, basically. So you can understand, so by knowing that he's a hermit, he basically doesn't want to be disturbed. He doesn't like the noise. He doesn't like the yearly carnival and the noise and stuff that comes with it. So he wants to do everything he can to get them out of there so he can have peace and quiet. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I've never seen the movie, Brian. How does Yogi come into this? Well, basically what happens is Yogi and Boo Boo and Cindy are all hibernating. Now, at first, Yogi and Boo Boo are woken up by the singing of the friend, by the singing that the friends are doing, And by waking up, they end up becoming, basically, by waking up, they accidentally become cooks. Unknowingly, they become cooks for the lodge, and realize that they've woken up not just at any time during the winter, but during Christmas. So Yogi decides, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to stay up because I've never experienced Christmas. I'm going to stay up and I'm going to experience. And the joke, and here's the thing, the joke that's thrown around throughout the movie is Yogi's trying to stay up, but he can't. Every now and then you'll see Yogi, fast asleep. And he has to be woken up by his friends. So basically they have to, I guess, accidentally or unintentionally, if you will, saving Miss Throckmorton and her nephew Snively, who's the other antagonist in the film. Her young nephew is the other antagonist. After saving them inadvertently, I should say, from an avalanche, Miss Throckmorton gets impressed by Yogi so much that she decides she wants to keep him around. So she keeps him around as a cook. She keeps him around as a bellhop. And throughout the film, he ends up getting a promotion to another job. Like, he gets promoted to hotel security. Now, when he gets promoted to hotel security, Ranger Smith is like, well, wait a minute. I'm security. I'm in charge of security. But, she says, well, yeah, you are for the park, but on my property, Yogi's security. So basically, Yogi gets all these various jobs. He goes from security, from a security officer to being a ski instructor, to being the lead singer for the chorus, to finally being the hotel manager. And again, you might ask yourself, okay, what does this have to do with anybody else? What does Cindy have to do with this? Well, Cindy, speaking of the Christmas chorus, when Yogi gets in charge, when Yogi is put in charge of the Christmas chorus, which again includes his friends as well as Miss Throckmorton, Miss Throckmorton puts him in charge because she likes his singing voice. But when they rehearse together, when Yogi, herself, Huckleberry, Snagglepuss, Augie Doggy, and Daddy Doggy, when they rehearse together, she can't sing with them. She can't sing equally with them, and tells them that unless they get more girl voices, it's going to ruin everything. So upon hearing this, Ranger Smith at first is like, oh my God, we're in trouble. But Boo Boo comes up with the solution. And come on. If you didn't know Cindy was going to, and if you've seen this movie for the first time, even when it originally aired, and you didn't even know she was going to be in it. You didn't know Cindy was going to be in it. When you heard Throckmorton say girl voices, you knew she was going to be in it. So anyway, Boo Boo goes over to Cindy's, wakes her up, tells her what's going on. At first she's reluctant, but then when she finds out Yogi is in charge, she goes right for it. So anyway, she ends up joining the chorus, and her running gag is throughout the movie, she tries to get Yogi under the mistletoe after Boo Boo kind of tells her what it is. And how does Boo Boo tell her what it is? By kissing her under the mistletoe on the cheek, which surprises her. So anyway, and of course then she goes into this song about the mistletoe, which a lot of people have joked around and saying, whoa, this is almost a little too risque for a children's program. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, her gag is trying to get Yogi under the mistletoe, and she does get him. She does get him, because what happens is that when he becomes the another one of the jobs he gets promoted to is, well, at first he's a security guard, and then he's like the chief of security. He's the guy in charge, the guy. So, which makes him almost above Ranger Smith. So what happens is that as he's taking down, well, basically what happens is she gets him, after he's given this new title, this new promotion, Cindy gets him under the mistletoe because he's trying to take down the mistletoes. Oh, so she's hung around the entire hotel. But anyway, I don't want to spoil any more, but basically, long story short, the running gag for both Yogi, Cindy, and Boo Boo together is trying to stay awake. And the running gag for Cindy, she's trying to get Yogi under the mistletoe, not only for her to kiss him, which she does, but for him to kiss her. And in the end, he does just that, because what he does is she's the last person, or the last person or character in the film that gets a present from Yogi. And the present is that she's named Miss Jellystone, and she's given a kiss on the lips by Yogi. So, okay, now I know I may have spoiled a lot of the movie, and I apologize for that. But I didn't spoil it all, so you'll have to watch most of it to get an idea of what I'm talking about if you've never seen it. But my childhood memories about it are so good, because you could tell that I remember it very well, and I enjoyed the film. Again, if you've never seen it, you have to see it. You have to check out Yogi's First Christmas. You could check it out on DVD now, as a matter of fact. You could check it out on DVD right now, because you go to Amazon.com, you go to the Warner Brothers store, and you can get it on DVD. So, but it's a great film. It's a great family film for the holidays. It's a great family film for any time of the year. It's that good. Now, I will say this. The animation is a little, isn't the best animation you can come up with. But again, it is a holiday special. It's a 2-hour holiday special. So you're bound to notice difference in animation styles. As a matter of fact, with Cindy, you might notice that her hair, like her little tail, not little tail, but her bangs, if you will, that she has, are white. So that kind of gives you an indication that they tried to make it as realistic as they can with the bears, because I think in nature during the winter, bears' fur, or any animal that hibernates during the winters, their fur changes color. So, but anyway, it's a great family film. You really got to check it out. Again, I apologize if I spoiled some of it for you guys, but again, I didn't spoil most of it. You have to check out the entire film to see exactly what happens and how all this comes about. And again, it's just a great, great family film to enjoy during the holidays and probably during most of the time of the year if you want to. So overall, definitely check it out. And those are my movie memories of Yogi's First Christmas.